Happy to be joined by top light heavyweight contender Aleksandar Rakic, who meets Jan Blachowicz in the main event of UFC Fight Night on March 26th. Aleksandar, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. I think we heard that March 26th is Columbus, Ohio. Did you hear that as well?
Yeah, I mean, today I wrote it in the internet that's gonna be in Columbus, Ohio. So I'm happy to be back on a big stage with fans. So I'm looking forward.
Yeah, and last time we spoke, and I think the last few interviews you've done, you were talking about wanting to fight Jiri Prochazka. I mean, that was the guy you wanted to fight. He wanted to wait for a title shot. You end up with Jan Blachowicz, a former champion. I mean, the landscape changed a little bit at light heavyweight. So was it more about Jiri, you wanting to fight Jiri, or was it you wanting a number one contender fight?
I mean, I got Jan Blachowicz for the next opponent. He's a former champion. He's number one ranked. So he's a great matchup. He's a great martial artist, and I'm happy to get this fight and to fight against him, against one of the best of the world. And about Yuri, man, I cannot take this clown seriously. I don't care about him. My focus is on Jan Blachowicz and on March 26th, and I don't care about this guy.
Because I know there was some back and forth talk between the two of you, and you're going to fight Jan Blachowicz, like you said, he's former champion, number one ranked right now. But do you have kind of unfinished business with Yuri? Are you hoping to fight him in the future, or what are your thoughts?
I mean, for sure, I'm gonna fight him in the future. We are both young. We are in the top of the division. He gonna probably fight against Glover. Still don't know when they're gonna fight. I don't care basically, but for sure we're gonna fight someday. But now I close the book with this guy. I don't care about him, about this fake samurai shit, what he's doing, and just focusing on Jan Blachowicz and my goal is to stay active, and this was not so possible this week this year. But finally, I got the opportunity to fight again, and that's for the number one contender, to fight for the belt.
I know Anthony Smith had called you out. He respectfully called you out. He said it's more about rankings. He felt like when you beat him, you took his spot. So it's just about that. Was that fight close to happen? Because I know you guys discussed December. How close was that fight to actually happening?
I mean, I saw his last fight against Ryan Spann, right? And then immediately he said he want to fight me, and I respond in the same time. So in the interview, in the post fight interview, Michael Bisping said to him, "Hey, we had a quick response for Aleksandar Rakic. Let's do it in December. He's free. I'm free, basically." And he was like, "Oh, okay, let's do it. Let's do it." And I was ready. Like I said, I wanted to stay active, to beat his ass again. But the UFC told me, "Man, what you want? You beat this guy 1 year ago." So basically, and then I was hearing he cannot make December. He's injured. He need to have surgery and everything else. So yeah, man. I don't know what to say. Yeah, to talk. He's talking, like talking now. The last interviews, he's also always talking about me and about how I refuse some fights. I mean, say to some fights no. I mean, I was challenging Jiri Prochazka 4 or 5 times this year, and he never respond. So I don't know what he wants. He sounds like an old grandma. So I don't care about him. He can have his surgeries and he can fight someone else. I have only, my goal is Jan Blachowicz, and he is in my way. For the title, I'm a man on a mission. I want to become the next UFC light heavyweight champion, and Jan is in front of me, and I know it's gonna be a tough fight. So yeah, that's the next step for me. And I don't care about Yuri, about Anthony, about anyone else. They can talk shit. The talking is over. Now it's time to work and yeah, to do what I can do the best and to fight.
One last one about Anthony before we move on to Jan Blachowicz. Have you been impressed with him at least since he lost to you? I think he's won 3 in a row, 3 finishes. Have you been kind of impressed with what he's been able to do after fighting you?
He had some good fights. I mean, he has 3 fights, 3 finishes. But no, I don't want to disrespect anybody, but his opponents are not in my level. So it's good for him. He made some money, and that's it.
Well, you get Jan Blachowicz, who just lost his title. What did you think of his performance against Glover Teixeira? Were you surprised to see that Glover was able to kind of have a dominant win like that?
I was very surprised. I was like, I talked to many friends and to the coaches, and they asked me about the fight, and I said like 70% for Jan and 30 for Glover. So the fight happened, and Glover does his thing. Man, this man this was his last chance of his life, and he went into and he did basically what he does the best. Coming forward like Mike Tyson style, head movement and put pressure against the cage, throw some hooks and go for double leg. And basically, he did a great job, and he was able to control Jan in the full first round. In the second, he submits him. But I don't want to underestimate Jan Blachowicz. He was a champion. He beat Israel Adesanya. He had some good fights in the UFC. Maybe this was not his night, and I guess he's gonna be like motivated for the fight against me. And he's a tough opponent for sure. He's a former champion, but look, I'm gonna turn 30 in 2 months, and I'm getting now in my prime, and I feel it in the training, and also mentally and physically, so. And a man in his prime, especially me, it's gonna be a good fight, and yeah, I'm gonna be well prepared for him.
You kind of took me to my next question about Blachowicz. Do you feel like, I mean, he had said something about how that night he felt like he would have lost to anybody. He just wasn't there kind of mentally. So do you take anything away from that fight that he had with Glover, whether it's something to do with the grappling, like any weaknesses you saw in Jan, or do you just feel like he had an off night? And that's not to discredit Glover. I mean, Glover is fantastic, and he's a fantastic
Yeah.
grappler as well. But do you take anything away from that fight?
I mean, a fight is a fight, and you can be the best prepared in the world, but if it's not your day, I believe him, I believe him. But what I don't understand is I think he could do much more than he did in the fight. For example, in the first round when when Glover controlled him and was in his full guard, why he didn't start to stand up, why he didn't try even to stand up, why he didn't shrimp, why he didn't put his bag on the fence and use the fence to stand up. He didn't even try this. So this was a little bit I was asking me why he's letting why he's accepting the floor so long. I mean, the grappling, he's a great grappler, he's a black belt, like Glover. But those things, and yeah, it could be true what he said. I don't know. He was upset. You can see it. But if it's not my day, and I feel it's not my day, I'm still gonna give everything, at this point, and try to finish the fight in the fastest way to end this fight and to end this day, at least. But yeah, he's an awesome fighter. I respect him as a fighter. He's great, but like I said, I'm a man on a mission. I have a hell of a team behind me, and I'm getting into my prime. And we've been studying, my team and me. We've been studying all of them, and we knew sooner or later I'm gonna fight Jan. So we are studying Jan for a while right now, and yeah, it's gonna be. I'm so pumped. When I got the contract, of the fight, I was like, I couldn't sleep the whole night. I was so happy to fight him, and to show the fans and to show the world and the UFC that to show a better version of Aleksandar Rakic and climbing to the top and getting the title shot and the belt.
Have the UFC told you that if you beat Jan, you get a title shot? I mean, it seems like a no-brainer if Yuri's going to fight Glover, but have you been given that kind of confirmation from the UFC?
Not yet. They didn't say anything. They just offered me the fight against Jan. So basically, if I beat Jan in a good way, in a good performance, I'm gonna be probably the #1 contender, and probably they're gonna fight Jiri and Glover, and I think I'm gonna be the next. Yeah.
How do you see the fight with Jan Blachowicz playing out?
I mean, I watched many fights of him. He can go 5 rounds. He can go like I said, he's very powerful. And I fought one Polish fighter. He's also in the UFC, and those guys are tough, and he's not like backing up. So it's gonna be a tough fight. It's gonna be a very tough fight, but I'm gonna be well prepared for him and for his best weapons. I cannot predict anything. I'm gonna be ready for 5 rounds of hell. I'm gonna be ready for a quick finish. I'm gonna be ready for a quick submission. We're gonna see. It depends. It depends what he's giving me. I'm gonna figure it out in a 2-3 minutes in the first round. I'm gonna figure out what his game plan is, how he's moving, and everything else. So and then we're gonna do some adjustments, and then yeah.
And how about the fight between Glover and Jiri? Who do you think wins that one?
Man, this is a good matchup. I mean, I would not say. I mean, Jiri has a good hype. And the people are loving him because of his fighting style. He's very open. He's aggressive, but he has many holes in his game. Especially, we couldn't see the grappling and the wrestling part, but what I saw in the Reyes fight, I see the most advantage in the grappling and the wrestling part for Glover. Also, the closing the distance, and put the guy on the fence. And if Glover can take him down and drain his energy, probably he can finish him. But the fight, a fight is a fight, and we are all heavy guys, and one punch can finish any fight. But I can see a lot of chances for Glover Teixeira.
And I'll leave you with a couple more questions. I appreciate your time. How does 2022 look for Aleksandar Rakic?
I'm gonna beat Jan Blachowicz in March, and I'm gonna secure the first title. I'm the first contender. I'm gonna fight probably then in summer or after summer for the title and become the new UFC light heavyweight champion and stay for a while.
And yeah, speaking of champions staying for a while, I mean, Glover became the oldest first-time UFC champion at 42. Do you think he continues fighting? I mean, whether he beats Jiri or not, do you see him, like if he beats Jiri, do you feel like he's going to hold on to the belt and keep facing these young, hungry contenders coming up, or do you see him potentially retiring soon?
I mean, like I saw in the last interviews, what he did after the fight against Jan, he seems like he's very motivated and he wants to stay and he stayed in the UFC for long. And especially if he beats Jiri, he's gonna be still motivated. And he want to prove, like he said, he want to show the younger guys how to fight. But every time has some end, and if it's not Jiri, I'm gonna end his career. Yeah.
Well, there you have it. Aleksandar, I appreciate you doing this. Thank you so much for your time. I'm glad you got the big fight. I know you wanted Jiri, but now you get an equally big fight, a former champion, the #1 guy. So I'm glad you got that fight. Very much looking forward to it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.